Representative Waldron, you are recognized from Representative Barrero's desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is not an anti-Chinese bill. This bill is about a pro-U.S. bill. This bill protects our state, all of our residents, and our country from the undue influence of countries engaged in activities seeking to harm us. Countries consistently showing us very publicly that they seek to undermine our democracy, disrupt our economy, and spread misinformation. We saw this firsthand with this bill when more than 100 people came to the State Affairs Committee for the bill's final committee hearing. I was later told virtually all of them were bussed in from Texas by the AALC. Along the way, they were lectured by the organizer of this trip that this bill will force them out of their houses or worse, allow us to deport them, none of which is true. They were told this bill is against the Constitution and that things like this are reasons for, quote, overthrowing the government. I have this video and it's been sent to the appropriate people. Meanwhile, Chinese American proponents of this bill who live in our state were too scared to show up and instead watched the proceedings via live stream. Out of the 74 comments posted during the live stream, all but 2 expressed their, quote, strong support for the bill. They have been calling me, emailing me, and texting me with their stories of intimidation and harassment. So I ask you, which of these 2 groups should we be defending and protecting? The communist threat to our nation is real. We have seen in recent weeks the illegal police stations the Chinese Communist Party has set up throughout our nation, the surveillance balloons traversing our country, the IT farm locations set up to enable the CCP to disseminate false information pertaining to our elections, our foreign policy, and other issues. While there has been a very vocal group of Chinese Americans opposing this group, I would invite you to look more closely at where those protests are germinating from and where the protesters who have shown up here and throughout our state in recent weeks actually live and what groups they are associated with before believing what they are selling you. A WeChat group was set up by the Chinese American community supporting this bill. A few days later, the group chat was shut down by the Chinese owners of WeChat. A supporter of the bill who showed up at the State Affairs Committee was threatened by opponents of the bill. She was told, quote, she shouldn't be there. You need to leave. And pictures of her were taken by several members of this group. She now fears retribution for herself and her family back in China. We are elected to represent our district and to move our state forward, and sometimes these decisions we make are not comfortable ones, but are necessary. Do not be intimidated by the vocal and aggressive actors we have seen in the past few weeks who do not have our country's best interests in mind, but quite the contrary. This bill seeks to ensure we protect all of our residents, particularly our Chinese American community who came here seeking a better life, freedom, and to get away from the Communist Party. This bill's intention is meant to protect us all from harm and keep us safe. And while we must protect human rights, national security is the one issue that predetermines the possibility of exercising these human rights and our freedoms.
Representative Snyder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We waive the remainder of our time in totality.
Having waived the remainder of the time in totality, Representative Barrero, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if you walk to House Office Building Room 315, on the hallways of that office, you will find a sign that says, food is a weapon. Don't waste it. Buy wisely, cook carefully, and eat it all. You keep walking down that hallway, you're going to see another sign that says, plant a victory garden. A garden will make your rations go further. And it comes from a time during World War II when food was scarce and it was rationed to help supply our troops with food. Can you imagine being in a situation where you have to plant your own garden or depend solely on domestic food supply in order to put food on your table? That's what was the reality during World War II. And during a time where China threatens to invade Taiwan, or even tyrannical regime like Vladimir Putin's invades Ukraine and has made it his vocal mission to take over Eastern Europe, that reality is not unimaginable in the 21st century. Just a month ago, NBC reported in a news headline, Xi Jinping and Putin pledge a new world order as Chinese leader leaves Russia. Putin recently stated, "We are working in solidarity on the formation of a more just and democratic multipolar world order, which should be based on the central role of the UN, its Security Council, international law." This bill prevents a foreign country of concern from purchasing our agricultural land in Florida. Members, our critical food supply should never be held hostage to a foreign country of concern. To the folks who are concerned with Section 7 of the bill, this bill does not discriminate against Chinese citizens or residents. The only ones who this bill discriminates against are communist and totalitarian regimes. You want to know how I know this is true? Chinese Americans and Chinese residents who are here in Florida have been silenced, likely by China, for merely speaking out in support of this bill. Let me tell you a little bit about WeChat. WeChat is the largest standalone app in the world with over 1 billion monthly users. WeChat is sort of China's app for everything. It's immensely popular among Chinese and Chinese Americans. And here's another dark little secret about WeChat. It's one of the CCP's main tools for surveillance and censorship. User activity is tracked, it's analyzed, and it's handed over to the Chinese government in line with CCP party mandates. And it's an essential part of their surveillance network. Those who post information against the party's narratives face a backlash of consequences, including being banished and even imprisoned for sharing as little as one wrong post. Now, I can tell you, like Representative Waldron was testifying to, that dozens of groups in support of this bill have been shut down and they've been silenced on WeChat. I know Chinese people personally who have been silenced and denied access on WeChat merely because they came out in support of this bill. You put the two and two together. Look who's behind the opposition of this bill, guys. And I say that to you because I want to remind you, when you vote up, who you're supporting with this bill. To the Chinese Americans and residents who spoke out in support of this bill, who risked your life advocating on WeChat for this group, we see you, we hear you, you are heroes. I say this because we want to support freedom and democracy and the rights of the Chinese Americans who are truly victims of communism here. And this probably shouldn't surprise us. Just a few weeks ago, the FBI arrested 2 defendants on charges that they set up and operated an illegal Chinese police station in the middle of New York City. And their purpose was to influence and intimidate dissidents of the Chinese government in the USA. It's happening right here in your backyards. Harry Liu Jianwang, 61 years old, of the Bronx, Jen Jinping, 59, of Manhattan, they were charged with conspiring to act as agents of the Chinese government and obstruction of justice. In a separate complaint, nearly 36 Ministry of Public Service officers, the CCP public officers, were charged with using fake social media accounts to challenge and intimidate Chinese dissidents in the USA and disseminate official PRC government propaganda. I'm going to read to you a little bit of Section 7 for those who are concerned. The following persons or entities may not directly or indirectly own or acquire by purchase, grant, devise, or descend any interest in real property in the state: the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, or any official or member of the People's Republic of China or the Chinese Party, or any person who is domiciled, who lives over there in the People's Republic of China and who is not a citizen or lawful permanent resident in the United States. If you are a lawful permanent resident of the United States, God bless you, purchase all the land you want over here. This bill does not discriminate against Chinese residents over here or Chinese citizens. But you want to know what? China doesn't afford the same privileges that we do. If you want to buy property in mainland China, you have to be living there. And that property must be residential. Why would we allow them unfettered permission to buy all of our real estate here in Florida? In fact, no foreigner, even in Hong Kong, is allowed to buy, lease, or inherit any land in Hong Kong. Members, we cannot sell the United States of America to a foreign adversary, and we cannot sell the United States of America to the Chinese Communist Party. I'm going to give you a few facts on Chinese purchases in the United States and why this is necessary. China is the #1 purchaser of USA real estate. According to the National Association of Realtors, China is the biggest purchaser, totaling $6.1 billion in assets from 2021 to 2022 alone. For the 10th consecutive year, the Chinese topped the list of overseas buyers of U.S. homes. That's why Section 7's in there, to prevent China and the Chinese Communist Party from purchasing up our real estate here in Florida. I'll give you a couple examples. I mentioned this yesterday. 140,000 acres. 140,000 acres, the size of counties. Properties the size of counties are being purchased up here. That Chinese military officer purchased that land, 218 square miles of land in Texas, right near Laughlin Air Force Base. 300 acres of land were purchased by a Chinese food manufacturer, the Fufeng Group Limited, right near Grand Force Air Force Base. If you're concerned about national security, you want to support this bill. And let's not pretend that China has our best interests in mind. The Chinese, we all know that they had spent a spy balloon to fly across the United States, and it was shot down because they were spying on the US of A. In China in 2021, Xi Jinping, he declared himself as China's new emperor by eliminating term limits and labeling himself chairman for life. Xi has crushed dissent, jailed opponents, and he's guilty of ethnic cleansing. Make no mistake, China has one goal in mind, and it's no secret that they seek to be the next leading superpower of the world. For a while, they've published their Belt and Road Initiative. If you don't know what that is, you have some time, I encourage you to look it up. Their Belt and Road Initiative is an international initiative to expand their system of transportation infrastructure through rail and ports around the world to make them the world's leading economic superpower. I'll give you an example. In Djibouti, debt-ridden to China, a port that was funded by China was taken over by China and now used as a military base in China. They promised them a grant. They later lied. They said it was a loan. They took over, and they made a military base out of that port. Members, we are at a crossroads in human history where the world is looking to be who is going to be the next world's leading superpower. Are we going to live in a free society where democracy, individual liberties, and that the United States is the strongest country in the world? Or are we going to reward totalitarian regimes in communist countries by allowing them to purchase up our land here in the United States of America? Members, let's tell the world that the free state of Florida is not for sale to totalitarian regimes. Please vote up on this bill.
Representative Barrero, having closed on his bill, the question now recurs on final passage of CS for SB 264. The clerk will unlock the machine and members will proceed to vote. Have all members voted? If all members voted, the clerk will unlock the machine and announce the vote.
95 yeas, 17 nays, Mr. Speaker.
Show the bill passes.
'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that